Human societies all through history are riddled with messianic figures, prophesied heroes upon whom the masses heap all their hopes and dreams. For the Fremen of planet Arrakis, this figure is the Lisan Al Ghaid, the voice from the outer world who will bring them to paradise. Life on Arrakis is beyond brutal, it being a waterless desert. The Fremen themselves have endured much suffering before even finding a home on this world. So it is very easy to see how their greatest hope, a green world with plentiful water, will become a cornerstone of their religion. Then comes Paul Atreides, the young scion of an ancient line. For some reason, this boy begins to fulfill all the signs that they were told to look for. His mother also has a part to play, and she fulfills it to a T. Throughout DUNE 1 and DUNE 2, director Denis Villeneuve's retelling of the book by Frank Herbert, the idea of messianic figures is portrayed, analyzed, and criticized. Should the people look forward to saving by some external entity that knows nothing of their culture? What if most of the tenets of said culture are fabrications? Indeed, what if everything they hold dear is merely a tool planted by some secret society, a tool by which they can be controlled? Is Paul Atreides really the Lisan Al Ghaid? Most people's visceral reaction after watching DUNE 2 should be horror or disgust at how Paul and his mother Jessica have hijacked the minds and hearts of the Fremen for their own purposes. Somehow, drinking the water of life turns both of them from the relatable mother-son duo we adored in the first film into edgy manipulators we almost hate. This is Denis Villeneuve's intention, as expressed in his many interviews and in the character of Chani, who Denis rewrote as the audience insert in the story. Paul Atreides is not meant to be the typical fantasy protagonist who, heralded by prophecies, undergoes the hero's journey to emerge as some deified figure. Paul Atreides is instead a warning, a rebuttal against those stories. We are meant to be taken aback by his actions here, to be disgusted. This is all well and good, a message we should no doubt consider in relation to our real-world alternates. However, I would like to propose a different take. In my view, Paul really is the Lisan Al Ghaib. In my view, he really is the Fremen's prophesied figure. If you would hold out on lynching me for this conclusion, allow me a few moments to walk you through my thought process here, to defend my opinion. Before we even start considering Paul as a candidate for the position of the Lisan Al Ghaib, he is already in line for the fulfillment of another greater pseudo-prophecy, that of the Kwisatz Haderach. The universe in which this story takes place houses a shadowy society called the Bene Gesserit. This is an all-female order that is the hand which puppeteers everything in this empire of man. They whisper to the emperor, to the lords of the great houses. They manipulate the legions of the masses. They control everything. And they are on a mission. By carefully cultivating bloodlines, they aim to give birth to a messianic figure of their own, the Kwisatz Haderach, a mind made in form which will be able to look where they cannot, a mind able to access both the rest memories of its fathers and its mothers' ancestors. With this, they hope, will come direction for the human species as a whole. I view this as a form of prophecy, except that in most real-world alternates, prophecies are things we expect to happen. We may hope for them or dread them, but believers are rarely actively attempting to realize them. The Bene Gesserit are getting their hands wet, dirty. They are dedicating themselves to bring this phenomenon about. That the Kwisatz Haderach will eventually rise is less an intellectual curiosity than it is a given fact. There are calculations in place, bloodlines harnessed for this purpose, and they are close, very, very close to fulfilling it. So, what does a powerful sect with a distinct ideology and massive amounts of faith do? Well, they spread it to the heathen masses, of course, by viewing the Bene Gesserit as an order of believers in the Kwisatz Haderach ideology. Their missionary protectiva agenda, by which they plant religious figures on various worlds, really does take on a missionary-like air. They are honing expectations. that one day there will be a unique human who will fulfill some prophecies and prove to be the answer to all these varied people's problems, the one they have always been looking forward to. The Fremen may call this person Lisan Al Ghaid, the Bene Gesserit may call him the Kwisatz Haderach, another world in a different sector may call him by a different name, but in the end, it is referring to the same person, to the same thing. Secondly, I would like you to consider the fact that in Paul's mind, he truly is Fremen, or at least that he very much wants to be. In the Frank Herbert books, it is made very clear by Princess Irulan that any historian wishing to study the life of Muad'Dib must place him carefully, not on Caladan where he was born, but on Arrakis, the planet called DUNE, which he truly saw as his home. Even in the movie, this is very clear. Paul has visions of a girl on Arrakis. He dreams about her. He studies and learns all about the planet. Then, upon arrival, he realizes that he knows their language. He intimately knows the ways of its people. He later expresses to Chani that all he wants is to be equal to her, to be one of the people. When they accept him as Fedaykin, when they name him Muad'Dib and Usul, he finally belongs, and he never really gives up that part of himself, that part of his identity. Never. As a side note, if you rewatch Dune 2, please pay special attention to how Chani responds to Paul's overtures here. Whenever he expresses a desire to be Fremen, she reacts violently. No, you may have been given a name by us, but you are not truly Fremen. You don't have our blood. You don't have our history, she says at one point. This is understandable, but it is also not good. It makes me dislike her somewhat. If someone makes that much effort to bring themselves down to your level, to understand your ways, to partake of them, shouldn't you welcome them? Shouldn't you look beyond their otherness, take them as your own? Surely this is the more humane approach. I have listened to accounts of fair-skinned rappers, white that is, trying to make it in the hood, predominantly black communities in the US. It's kind of hard on them trying to fit into a group that rejects them outright. I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me, it doesn't feel right. Anyway, let us compare Paul to another prophesied messianic figure in a different fantasy story. You are probably aware of Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn of the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I hope so, because I'm about to spoil certain aspects of that story. That series is a culture that is somewhat similar to the Fremen of Dune. The Aiel, they live in this desert wasteland called the Threefold Land, and they have adapted to conditions there. They are a warrior culture, hardened by the environment, and they have a peculiar system of honor. You know, just like the ritual duel between Paul and Jarvis and all of that. The Aiel have a prophecy about he who comes with the down. This proves to be Rand al'Thor. Unlike Paul, Rand is a Aiel by blood, but he wasn't raised with his people. He doesn't know their ways, nor does he really attempt to become one of them. Sure, we have moments where Vienda lectures him on Aiel protocol, the intricacies of the Geator system. He does practice the spears with the clan chiefs, and even falls back on their practice of polygamy for his relationships. But Rand specifically sets himself apart from the Aiel. In his mind, they are a convenient tool, an army that will follow him without question, die at his command. By the end of this series, no one is saying that Rand al'Thor has truly become one of the Aiel, or that the Threefold Land is his home. Paul, in my mind, is Fremen. He deserves to be their Lisan Al Ghaid. Consider this too. What is Paul's motivation? Why does he take up the mantle of this prophecy? Why does he decide to drink the water of life? What pushes him to send the Fremen up to the stars to begin this holy jihad that he has been avoiding all throughout the movies? What does Paul Muad'Dib Atreides want? The answer is simple. It is what every Fremen wants. Green paradise. There is an odd moment early on in the second film. Paul and his mother have just arrived at CH Tabr. Paul mentions using the Fremen to provide them with an army with which to retake Arrakis. Jessica mentions that his father did not believe in revenge, and Paul answers that maybe he does. This is odd because I've already concluded that the rest of the movie, where he seeks to become Fremen, was a honest motivation on his part. So the only conclusion is that his motivation shifts in that moment. Jessica lies recovering from drinking or partaking of the water of life. It's the first moment he denounces the prophecy and his own statement from a scene earlier. All the same, the desire for vengeance still simmers within Paul. It is the part of his Atreides legacy that he casts away and later takes up, as symbolized by his ducal signet, the ring. When Paul becomes Fremen, he takes up much of their attitudes on life and their desire for a green Arrakis, a terraformed world where water is plentiful and life is easier. In part, that is what they are fighting for by disrupting spice production. It is a vision of precisely this, Arrakis with an ocean that he sees when conversing with his sister during the spice agony. As you probably know, when this planet was initially discovered, the Empire began terraforming efforts, but they were stopped once the significance of spice became clear. This is from the first movie, as said by Dr. Liet Kynes. As Emperor, Paul will be able to move forward with those efforts. Without authority, he can fulfill the Fremen's hope and their prophecies. Having avenged his father by killing Vladimir Harkonnen, all that remains to him is his Fremen identity. I honestly think this is what drives him from now on, what necessitates the jihad, that Arrakis be allowed to exist and flourish without interference from the other houses or the other lords. My conclusion: Paul is the Lisan Al Ghaid. He is Fremen. There is a saying that it is not the family you are born into that matters, but the family you choose, the friends you have around you, the ideologies you take, the people who are your people. These are my people, they say. Both are significant to one's identity. Now, if you've got your DUNE lore on, you know that this vision of Arrakis is eventually achieved in time, in the future. Paul's efforts are significant in realizing that vision and bringing it into reality. For the Fremen, he did fulfill everything in their prophecies, planted though they may have been. But that is my analysis. What do you think?